Welcome everyone. I'm Nils Lind, founder and CEO of Assertive Yield. Today we are diving into the Q4 2024 market outlook, analyzing the trends that shape programmatic advertising over the past quarter, as well as yearly performance and what they signal for the road ahead. Let's dive in. When we are looking specifically at the programmatic advertising spend development of 2024, we can see a really nice curve throughout the year. We started low and step by step each quarter revenue increased. However, when we look more closely, this trend is not the same for every publisher. And just to reiterate, we are looking specifically at US data right now. When we look more precisely, we see that publishers who had disabled political spend did not have such nice increases. Those publishers without political spend actually had a decrease after the second quarter. So for them, the second quarter was the biggest one. But for everyone who was significantly running with a political spend, they had a really nice year throughout, growing quarter over quarter over quarter. One interesting thing is that when we look specifically at like a day-to-day trend and look at the day after the elections, November the 6th, this is the day with the lowest revenue of the entire month, showing how the political spend basically dropped. But it didn't take long for it to recover. The next day already, revenue was back up to almost normal levels, probably going into the holiday spending. This overall put the revenue of 2024 significantly above the performance from the previous 3 years, but only specifically for the second half of the year. For the first half of the year, performance was still, for some publishers, significantly or to some degree lower than in previous years. If we look at Europe specifically, the trend looks very different. In Europe, we started as usual low in Q1, had a nice Q2, similar to the publishers in the US, but then Q3 and Q4, the performance was not on par. Now, when we actually compare the US publishers' data who did not allow political spend with the European trend, the trend is almost the same. Nice Q2, but very, very soft Q3 and Q4. So looking at this data and this analysis, it kind of shows us that the market in Q3 and Q4 was probably still quite weak or quite soft overall, but the political spend in the US changed the perspective. Another thing we need to note is, especially with the difference between EU and US for those months, is that while ID adoption has already been strong in the previous quarters, it further accelerated in the third and the fourth quarter. Furthermore, while bridging solutions were already quite established, additional solutions that allow, for example, to utilize ham-hashed email addresses directly without a bridging provider became more popular in the second half of the year. These approaches are still kind of new and not too many publishers are using them, but they are gaining more and more traction. Now, these approaches also, like both the bridging approaches as well as the hashed email approaches, all of these kind of at the moment somewhat exclusive to US. Of course, it is available in other countries and regions to some degree, but specifically in Europe, the majority of these solutions are not available, and especially the ones that deliver significant lift, meaning more than 5%, more than 10%, more than 15% lift overall, not just on iOS, are just not available. Looking at the developments on the SSP specifically, so when we look at it overall worldwide, the trends have shifted a bit. Now, by far leading the revenue share, the win rates, is Index Exchange. Their strategy seems to have been working really well, which they have been adopting. Following Index Exchange is Yieldmo. Yieldmo is not that popular yet with many publishers, but they have been driving significant revenue, especially incremental revenue, for the publishers work with them. Following further, we have the normal players like Magnite, MediaNet, Xandr, OpenX, Programmatic, TripleLift, all kind of clustering around the same area. Though the one that is leading that pack remains to be Magnite. Another nice change we see is that CTAG has been increasing in the share of impressions they are buying from the publishers, but their share of revenue is still slightly below the others. However, this is understandable given that they are following a more privacy-friendly approach of running campaigns that don't require targeting, cookies, and so on to the levels of what most of the other exchanges rely on. As we have seen, the developments, especially in Q4, have been quite interesting, but also throughout the entire year, looking at the second half of the year, we have seen such major differences between different dynamics of inventories within the same country with and without political spend. Huge difference in how the market developed for these publishers. At the same time, the differences between US and European spend has changed significantly, and it all looks like it is heavily driven by the political spend, which of course makes sense. But at the same time, when we dive deeper into the data, we can see that a good growth of this performance is not only driven by political spend, it is also driven by identity enrichment. Identity enrichment itself, as we mentioned, bridging providers are quite popular nowadays, but there's more and more ways popping up on how the identity gap can be resolved or basically can be bridged. Unfortunately, to this day, it is not possible to use most of these solutions on the European market, and there's no timeline or definition as to when and to what degree it might be possible. A lot of the identity solutions and providers do want to enter the European market, and they have been working on the legal necessary steps to do so, but they are unable to provide any kind of timeline as to when that might be happening, or if it will be happening at all. At Assertive Yield, we have been investing in server-side technology since 2021, in particular providing traffic shaping solutions to SSPs. This expertise we took in recent years to the publisher side, providing publishers with the option of server-side monetization, relying on optimizations that were already battle-proven and optimized from the SSP side. Building on top of these technologies and combining it into a strong product has allowed us to grow into the enterprise segment, working with the world's biggest sales houses and media conglomerates. Nowadays, Assertive Yield is managing and optimizing an open auction revenue value of over $3 billion a year. With the evolving market dynamics, strategic demand partnerships and smart monetization approaches, staying ahead means making data-driven decisions. We remain committed to helping publishers maximize efficiency and revenue in this ever-changing landscape. Thanks for joining today, and here's to shaping the future of programmatic advertising together. Thank you all.